What's going on, meaning makers? In this episode, I have Ralston Drake. He is a good friend of mine. We have been to Australia together. We've had a lot of laughs, a lot of memories, maybe even an exorcism. We probably won't get into that today, but that is a story for another day. But Ralston, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Keegan?
Good, man. I'm good. I'm excited. Today, we're going to be more talking about how Ralston has done the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. Did I get that right?
That was correct.
Okay, that
And
was
if you
correct.
really want to get more
Yeah,
correct,
get specific. Get more
it's
correct.
Appalachian Trail.
Oh, sorry.
I know. That's really
Midwest, Southern, my accent, I know.
It's really just like the mountains. Like mountain people are the only ones who call it Appalachia or Appalachian.
Would you consider yourself a mountain person now?
Well, that's where I grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up at the base of the Appalachian Mountains.
You did?
Yeah,
I forgot about that. In Blairsville.
Yep. It's right. It's like my hometown is the first. If you're going northbound on the trail, it's the first town you come to.
Okay.
Is my hometown.
Very cool.
So, but literally everybody outside of the mountains, it doesn't matter if you're southern or not. Like,
yeah.
Most people say Appalachian.
Appalachian. I will never get that wrong again. Don't worry.
Thank you.
So for someone who doesn't know about these two trails, can you kind of explain what they are, where they're located geographically, why people hike them?
Yeah. So, there's actually like 11 different national scenic trails in the country that some obviously are more popular than others, but probably the most popular by far is the Appalachian Trail. And then probably second to that is the Pacific Crest Trail.
Yep.
And then if you really want to get to like really in the weeds of trail lore and lingo, like you can become a Triple Crown through hiker and do those two trails plus the Continental Divide Trail. And it all goes back to, like the history of just trails in the country actually goes back to the Appalachian Trail because it was like the first major trail in the U.S. But it was just a guy who had this dream of, it was kind of in the middle of the 1920s, so people finally start to have disposable income. And so people were able to like spend their money on recreation for like the first time ever.
Yeah.
And so he gets this kind of grand idea to, what if I created some experience where people could literally like walk through their country and see the land, experience the land, and just his words were saunter through it. And if you're familiar with like European backpacking, that's kind of what he wanted to set it up as. Is he wanted to set it up as like there would be hostels all along the way, so you would never have to sleep in a tent. Like he had this grand, big vision for this very comfortable, fun, again, sauntering through the mountains experience. That's not what happened, and that's not how people ended up choosing to hike the trail. Just as he began, starting the process of building the trail and finding people to help sponsor it and getting, land rights from the government to be able to like protect the trail, it just kind of morphed into more of a, just like a very backwoodsy, like kind of roughing it experience. But people started coming to the trail actually as a way to kind of heal from brokenness in their life. Is kind of what is really how the first people who started the trail. The first person to ever hike the Appalachian Trail, his name was, that escapes me, Earl Schaefer is his name. And he hiked it in 1948 after he got back from World War II. And so he just was like, how in the world do I cope with being back after watching my friends die and after watching, just so much death and destruction over the last however many years. And he was like, what better way than to walk it off through the woods of my country? Another early through hiker was a woman by the name of Grandma Gatewood. And she came to the trail after being abused her entire marriage. She was 65, I think, in 1955 is when she did that. She just had been in an abusive marriage and was like, I'm done with this. Yeah. So that's, and still to this day, people come, like you meet people from all over who come for their healing from divorce, from death, or like a death in the family. Obviously not like their own death, but
Excuse me.
but you meet a lot of people who are walking to heal some sort of brokenness. But you also have people who are out there for adventure. Like it has become, in a way, too, just a mark of, especially if you're in that world, a mark of just kind of significance of like, oh, like I did that. Like that's an accomplishment. That's an achievement. Then you get these crazy people who try to do it as fast as possible and try to run the whole thing. And that's in like the ultra marathon running world. Like that's a huge deal to be able to like, complete that in the fastest time possible. So that's a little bit about the history of the trail and about, kind of how it started and why people hike. And it's just so personal is what I really like about it. And what I found is a really fun thing. Everybody's out there for something totally different. I mean, you can kind of clump them into categories, but people just find out about it in just a wide variety of ways. And, and from all over the world. I mean, there are people from all over the world that come to find whatever they're trying to find or heal from whatever they're trying to heal from or just whatever. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating place.
Yeah, that was awesome. I don't know if you saw the Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin interview, but that's what I felt like right there. Like the first 30 minutes, Putin's just like giving him the history and the backstory. That was awesome. Thanks for that. I did not even know that it went back that far.
Yeah, it goes back to, I don't think I gave a year, but 1937 technically is when the trail was finished.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So knowing you before you went trailing, and you started in 2022.
Yes.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, no one's life is perfect, but you had a comfortable life. So why uproot your life to go do the Appalachian Trail? Did I say it right that time?
That's very good.
Sweet.
Very good.
All right, Appalachian Trail. Yeah. Why uproot your life to go do that in 2022?
That really is a great question because I thought about that because I was like, on paper, like my life does look perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. Like it was, I had a job, I had plenty of friends, I had, have a great family. Like there was really no reason to do that other than just like internally, I think I just was, for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, but I just was a little dissatisfied with life. Mm. It just seemed like, I don't know, I feel like I sound like such a like millennial first out of college when I say this, but like, I just felt like I was lied to a little bit when I got out of college because it just is hard to really know what you want to do. And, I was jumping around from job to job and wasn't really finding my niche in the work world and just wasn't satisfied, wasn't content with what I was doing. And I don't know, like.
And you thought college was what was portrayed to you as the thing that would give you that purpose, that niche, that exact place.
Right, yeah.
For the next 50 years, you'll know what you're doing.
Right, like you just think that like your first job out of college, like I'm going to get here and I'm going to like stay till I retire. Like I'm going to like make my mark here. I mean, you just kind of have all these thoughts and expectations that run through your head of what life is supposed to be like. And you just quickly realize it's not.
Yeah.
And you start to realize like, if I want to do something with my life, I'm going to have to create that opportunity. Now, I do think that there were a lot of spiritual implications that I learned on the trail that, I think we live in this weird world of like, how do we both create our life, but also let God lead our life? Like, how do we kind of have this, how do these two, where do these places merge? But I think at that time I really kind of had to, for me, I just was like, I'm if I want my life to change, if I want to be more satisfied with my life and feel like I am living a more purposeful life, like it is going to require me to step out on a limb a little bit and, go for things that I do feel like maybe God's calling me to and things that I want to do. And again, like trying to be creative with my life and doing the things I want to do. So yeah, that's that's why I decided to uproot my life a little bit, which sounds kind of crazy. Because again, it's like not that nothing was wrong with it per se. It was just I just needed a change. I needed to do something differently because I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think
a
I
big change. So why that change? Because some people might move, some people might,
right. I could have
you know,
just
they
changed.
you moved and did the trail.
Right. Yeah. I got rid of my lease. I, moved in with my parents. I was like, I'm just gonna go be a dirtbag. Yeah, I think that's where, like, why I say, letting the Spirit kind of guide you, letting God guide you in your life a little bit, because I'd always had this just like underlying desire for adventure in some way, and wanting to do something that was just gonna test me, and something that was there's just something exciting about the unknown, and something exciting about like the trail that I was like, man, like, can I really, I believed I could do it. I was like, I really think I could do it, but like, that's insane to,
And it's not like you hadn't gone on adventures before. Because like
right.
study abroad, you went to Chile,
Yeah. Yeah. And
Australia. So you were familiar with the potential of what it could be like, but actually doing it's very different.
right. Yeah. And especially just, having to think about, you're out there for 5 to 6 months and you're in a tent. Like, can you like mentally prepare yourself for just the weather you're going to get into, sleeping on the ground like 90% of the time? Are you, I mean, how are you going to make friends? Like, are people going to be, they don't have to be cool, but are they going to be just like not crazy? Like, are you going to run into people that you are going to be like lifelong friends with? Like,
Are they going to be like me? Will they be normal?
right.
Maybe normal isn't even the right word, but
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care if I'm pretty open to different people. Like, you can be a little weird. You can be, I really don't care. Just don't be crazy. Like, don't give me serial killer vibes. Like,
yeah.
that's all I'm asking. So it was just, but there was something about that like really drew me in to that experience that I was like, man, like that would be just such a fascinating thing to do and just a really cool thing to do. And I was like, what am I going to learn about myself along the way? Like, what am I going to experience? How am I going to change? How's my mindset on life going to change? Like, there was just something about all those thoughts that really drew me to the Appalachian Trail. So that's how that got started.
What did you learn about yourself during those 5-6 months of the first trip?
Gosh, all kinds of things. I'm trying to think of like what's like maybe the first thing that comes to mind. I think I learned that I'm capable of doing things that I want to do. Like I'm fully capable of doing things. And doing hard things. Like we joked a lot about like on like bad days, like we would just kind of all be like, we can do hard things, we can get through it. But it's true. I mean, you just learn that you can, like, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And so it really gives you the confidence to like go into whatever it is, knowing that you can endure, you can persevere. I think it also taught me too that with like my mindset, if you just go into things with very little expectation of anything, that sounds bad to have no expectation, but not to be open to what is in front of you. Like, you can get through things, because I think a lot of times like the people that I saw quit, they just had this like crazy expectation of like, this is what this trail is supposed to be, and when it's inevitably not, they just kind of lose their minds. Like one guy, he just was very dissatisfied, about 400 miles in that I met, and I don't think he enjoyed, I think he thought it was just going to be just like a big kumbaya party all the time, that everybody was just like great friends and they would just all like go together as one big group to the end, and that he would just, I think he just watched one too many YouTube videos where that was the case. Because you do have people who like become lifelong friends day one and make it to the end together, but that's not always the experience. And you're out there with people come from all different walks of life, and so you're not just around people that are like you. So you're constantly having to like be around people that may be different than you and may think differently. And I can see where that can be very uncomfortable for some people. And so, but I just learned that if I keep myself open and learn from every situation, like I can endure, I can persevere, I can, I can get through it. And just knowing full well too that, at least having the expectation that like, okay, there are going to be days where this freaking sucks. There are going to be days where it rains all day long, and I just have to know that going in, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. So, I don't know. I just learned a lot about like what I'm able to endure and and that I'm capable of doing the things I want to do. And I think also just learned a lot about maybe just priorities in life. Because I met a lot of people who are like a lot older than me on trail. There's a lot of retired guys, and a lot of their message was kind of always the same. They were just like, man, like we wish we'd done this years ago, but time just got away from us. And they were just life is so short. Life is so life is just so fragile. I mean, one of my really good buddies that I hiked with him, he's 45. And he made the decision to hike the trail after his brother got cancer. He was like, wow, like life is so short, and like why am I not at least trying to pursue at least one thing that I want to do? And so I think that was another thing that I realized is just, life is so short, and really trying to prioritize, what's most important to me, and you have a lot of time to think about those things while you're out there, while you're just walking through the woods. And you think about like, okay, who am I really? Like, what do I really value in my life? And just making the conscious effort then to just make those priorities my priorities, and not, because we live in a great time in society because there are so many options.
Yeah.
But it also can be very distracting because there are so many options. So we want to try to maximize life by doing all the things. And I think trail really teaches you to like really slow down and really think through like what are the meaningful things to me personally. Not so much, what's personal and meaningful to me may not be the same thing for you. So yeah, you have a lot of internal battles. You have a lot of internal thought processes. You have a lot of just like, and even just, present problems like, getting up a hill or like walking in the rain or whatever that you deal with. And it's tough. It's tough mentally to get through. But once you get to the other side of like, once that becomes just the normal though, because it does wear off. Like after the first month, I was like, okay, this is just life now. Like this is what I do. And so it became easier. But that first month was hard.
Yeah.
First month was really hard. There were a lot of days I wanted to quit.
Yeah, I like the idea of tenacity that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That when hard things come up, do you have the ability to push through? And how that's such a big part of mindset.
Yeah.
And yeah, that idea that in society, it feels like we've gone from the pond that is 100 feet deep to now it looks like an ocean, but it's only an inch deep.
Right.
And it feels like we're not getting any depth.
Right.
But the trail you feel like was more like the pond where you actually get a chance to go deeper in yourself with other people.
Right.
How do you think your values changed during that time? Because you mentioned that I have values, I need to reprioritize some. How do you think those changed?
Yeah. I think one thing about the trail is that most people realize by the end is that it was never really about the trail. It was always about the people. It was always about the people you met. It was about the
The
friendships you
Disney
made.
movie ending.
It really
It was
that's
all about the
so
journey.
cheesy, I know, but it really is like, I mean, you think back on all of just like what made certain moments great,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, there are times where like you just have a beautiful sunset on top of a mountain, and it's
Yep.
just unbelievable by yourself. But so many of the memories that I like look back on so fondly are the ones where that were like shared with
Yep.
other people. Um, I mean, I always go back to the story. I was going up Roan Mountain, which is, if you're familiar with the AT, it's in Tennessee. It's like it's like close to like Kingsport, Bristol,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the northeast, like the very far northeast corner of the state.
Got it.
And so I'm climbing up Roan Mountain, and Roan Mountain is supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to be like one of the prettiest places on trail. It's it's got all these like meadows at the top that are like bald, so you can see it's just beautiful. It was completely socked in while I was there, and dumping rain. I mean, dumping rain. And I was like, kind of hiking by myself at that point. I was kind of in and out of different, we call them trail families. So I was kind of in and out of different trail families, in and out of different groups. I just was more kind of like lone wolfing it a little bit. And I just remember I was climbing up Roan Mountain, and I was like, this is so miserable. Like I'm cold, I'm wet. I don't really have like any consistent friends. Like everybody's friendly and everybody's nice, but it would just be nice to like every night get to camp and be like, oh God, like Keegan's there, like so and so's there. So I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, do I really want to finish this? Like, do I really want to do this? And was just like really down on myself. So there's a shelter. So there's shelters all along the Appalachian Trail. I mean, they're not anything special. They're basically like three walls and a roof, and that's pretty much it. And maybe like a wood floor that you can like lay your stuff out on. So there's a shelter at the top of the mountain that I was trying to get to because I was like, well, at least there'll be people there. Somebody will be at a shelter, and I can at least like make friends and just kind of get through the night. And if I really want to get off trail, like tomorrow I'll be in town and I'll just make the call then, whatever. Well, I get up to the shelter, and it was like one of the best nights I've ever had, like I had ever had on trail. Because I get up there, and the shelter on the top of the mountain is like a cabin, so it's like
Yep.
it's all enclosed, and everybody's just miserable and wet and trying to dry off. But everybody that was up there was was just having a good time. Like one dude had a gallon sized bag of like gummy worms, Sour Patch Kids, the little sharks, like the little blue shark gummies.
Yeah.
I mean, he had this huge bag full of all kinds of different, just like gummy worms. And then, like, one girl was like playing her ukulele, and they were just like telling stories, and they were just laughing. And then they were just like, well, hey, man, like, you should come hang out with us. So they just really included me in like their kind of the fun they were having. And it ended up, I actually finished the trail with, let's see, one of the girls that was there. They were part of a bigger trail family that had kind of like broken up into different groups. But I ended up like becoming great friends with them and ended the trail with one of the girls that was there. And it just like totally changed my mindset. It totally like got me out of my funk. It got me out of like my I remember the next day we all hiked into town together. We went to a hostel. We all like just had a blast just hanging out. And I was like, this is what it's about. Like this is what the trail really is about, and this is why it's so great and makes it so like wonderful is just the people you meet. So again, like going back to values, I mean, it really just kind of brings you back to focus of just like it really is about the people in your life. It's about the relationships you have, and it's about the shared experiences you have with other people, um, and I don't know, it just everything else just seems so little compared to that. So it really just you just learn to shed a lot of care for things outside of your relationships and your friendships.
Yeah, what a God moment.
Yeah,
In
it
the
was
thick of,
wild.
I am going to quit. I am literally just trying to seek shelter so I can quit tomorrow.
Pretty
And then you
much,
have the
yeah.
best night. That's such a God moment.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that's the other thing too that I'll share as well is like, you don't meet a lot of other Christians out there. It's not like they had any idea that they were like, you know, in a way, kind of, you know, God's shining light for me that night. They had no clue. And it was funny because I told them that later. I was like, you guys just don't know how close I was to quitting until I met you. And they were like, that's amazing. Like they were just like
Yeah.
very like appreciative. They're like, wow, like we're so glad that we could have been there for you. Um, but I don't know. I think a lot of times in society too, like we like to kind of silo ourselves into kind of our camps.
Mm.
And I think that's one thing that like that was kind of broken down for me a little bit is like I can still be a Christian and still love God, but yeah, be in different camp, like go to different camps.
Yeah.
You know, like that was one thing that I really enjoyed was getting to know different people and getting to know where they came from, and then getting to just be a friend to them.
Mm-hmm.
Was just all I loved the friendships I made, and I loved the people I met, and yeah, it was good. But yeah, you don't meet a whole lot of fellow believers out there, but in a way, it doesn't.
Which is so strange to me because I feel like Christians, and this is my own opinion, ought to be the ones like basking in the creation more often because there's that appreciation.
Right.
There's man, this would be so cool to be in the forest, learn how to live off the land. I don't know. I guess there's that comfort piece of the 21st century that's kind of scooching them away from that. I don't know if you have thoughts on that as to why there aren't as many Christians on the trail.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say it just for society in general is just yeah, we are the comforts of society, and and I've read a lot of books on those ideas of just like our comfort, our 21st century comforts, more of a solution or are they more of a problem? There's
Yes.
actually a guy that I like really like. His name is Michael Easter. He wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. It's fascinating. He does a lot of research into like the history of like and into just mental health and physical well being and just all the different things of just why maybe our comforts aren't really that comfortable for us. But I don't know. Like I don't have any of my own personal like hard data on this or anything, and I don't have any sort of just like
This is scientific, everyone.
right, yeah. But one thing that I thought was really interesting about one point that Michael Easter made in his book, The Comfort Crisis, is he has this idea. He talks about how in society we've gone away from like rites of passage ceremonies, and he was talking about for thousands of years like all these different cultures and all these different people and all around and this is pretty universal. Like no matter where you were, like there was just like a coming of age ceremony that people embarked on. And I think a modern day example of this I think is still in the Masai Mara tribe in Kenya. I don't know how much this is actually practiced because there's a lot of like animal rights that are like activists that are trying to like stop this, but in the Maasai tribe, you're not considered like a warrior, like a man, until you have killed a lion with a.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's cool. I've met some of these guys
It's
before,
cool.
and they are like no joke.
Yeah.
But they still, like to this day, I think practice, going out and killing a lion with like a spear, like a handheld weapon. And I'm not saying that we should go start that in this country with like bears or wolves or whatever, but I think there is something about the idea of like a rite of passage or some sort of something that people do because his whole point is like, how can anybody trust you in your group or in your tribe if you haven't tested yourself, if you haven't tested your loyalty, tested your strength, because to them you know, the survival of the group depended on the strength of the individuals. Depended on the, like, can we trust this person is going to, like, basically pull their weight in, you know, in our tribe, in our group, in our city, in our village, whatever. And you know, these tests that people did, these like rites of passages, it gave people the confidence to go back to their village and be an active, involved member. And you know, the way that Michael Easter talks about it in his book, from what I remember, is like we because we've gotten away from that, like we no longer have like the mental fortitude. We no longer have the like the strength, the whatever to like face normal life, and the challenges that it brings. And I don't think that's just like a Christian experience. I think that's just it's kind of again universal now. But it is interesting that you say that about you don't find many Christians out there because I mean that was like the first thing that Jesus did when he was, after his baptism is he went to the wilderness. He went to be tested, to spend time with God, and I know people talk about like, I know there's ideas out there of just like, you don't literally have to go find your wilderness. Like it's more of like make your wilderness whatever it is. But no, I think you really should go to the wilderness. I think you should really try to like go out and spend some time in the woods because I think it is like one thing I did learn about myself too, and just about faith in general is like being out in the woods is like it's really not as scary anymore, but all you have is what's on your back. I mean, you have no like when you get to a road, I mean, you have no clue if anybody's going to pick you up. You have no clue if you're going to get food in the next town. You have no clue what's going to happen to you for between point A and point B on a trail. Like you just have no clue. But somehow or another, things always work out one way or another. I mean, I'll never forget. One time we decided to make our own route. We were just like, well, let's just instead of going the trail, let's just make our own route and we'll do something totally different and we'll kind of like make a more straight shot to where we're trying to go today. So we ended up going a different route and ended up in this other town and didn't have a place to stay. And this was up in like, I think Adams, Massachusetts. And so we're like trying to like go find this like alternate route that just doesn't exist. Like there was no route up the mountain. It was just all like overgrown old trail and we just had no idea where we were going. The sun was going down. We didn't have any place to pitch our tent. We didn't have any food. So we're like, what are we going to do? So we ended up walking back down into town, just kind of with our heads low because we were like, dang, like now we have to backtrack and we have to get to we were just like really disappointed. And we got to a VFW, which is a Veterans of Foreign Wars bar. They're all over the country. And so we show up at this VFW. You've got all these vets in there and just a bunch of old guys. And they were super nice. Like, they were like, yeah, come sit down, like, come hang out. And, one guy was, like, just really helpful. He was like, oh, yeah. He was like, were you trying to go up, that route today? And we're like, yeah, we couldn't. He's like, oh, yeah. He said, I wish you'd talked to me before. He said, that's been overgrown for years. He's like, tomorrow morning, he said, I'll pick you up. And he said, I'll take you to a better trail that will get you up the mountain way faster. And it's, like, really easy. And then we were like, well, we don't have a place to stay tonight. And then the bartender was like, why don't you just pitch your tent in the back?
Wow.
So it's just like, and that happens all the time. Like things like that happen all the time of just like, again, you have no clue where you're going to lay your head that night. You have no clue like, where food may come from, but somehow or another, like it happens. Like, and a lot of people attribute that to just trail magic, is what we call it. But I think there really is more to it. I really think it is just like more divine than that. Again, I have no scientific backing on that. But things just don't make sense. And it's like, man, like that just is kind of the Lord working, I think, in a lot of ways. And it really kind of grows your faith a little bit of just, yeah, it's just an unreal experience. I don't know how, like, I really think everybody should, at some point in their life, just try it out. Go for a week. Go for a week.
Yeah, start easy.
Yeah, go for a
Start
week.
easy.
Live like a thru hiker for a week on the trail and just see if I'm wrong. See if I'm wrong.
How was it assimilating back to quote unquote normal life?
Well, for me, it was actually not too bad. Especially after the Appalachian Trail. I knew that I wanted to do the Pacific Crest Trail the next year. So I kind of had that on my horizon. So
was that before you did this one, or was it during that one you were like, I need to do the PCT as well?
Actually, I wanted to do the PCT for years.
Okay.
Like, I just always thought it was really cool. I actually wanted to do it before I wanted to do the AT. But when I got into like when I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to do, like the AT or the PCT first, the AT was it just gave me a lot of peace because it's a much easier logistically type trail because there's just towns more frequently, and it's and like being from like Southern Appalachia, like, I'm close to home. Like it was just kind of a nice like introductory trail.
Yeah.
Still really hard, but there's a lot less planning you have to do, and there's a lot more less you have to be. You don't have to be as prepared for like severe weather, and you're not like out there. I mean, you're crossing roads every day, But once I got halfway through the AT, I was like, no, I could do the PCT. I could definitely do the PCT. But you asked about, assimilating back. But yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do the PCT right after the AT. So it was like, I got home and just kind of went to work on like, okay, I need to get a permit. I need to stay in shape. And it was just like, also want to get new gear. I like totally redid my gear on the PCT. So like I said, I had that on the horizon. So I kind of had that stuff to look forward to. But there is, it is like a thing on when you get done with trails. It's called post-trail depression. And a lot of people, they get home and there isn't a next trail on the horizon. And it's just, okay, I'm going to go back to my just regular gig at a coffee shop, or I'm going to go back to my regular gig at whatever. And I mean, it is difficult at times because, I mean, you do have such a life-changing experience, and you do have such a just wild adventure that you've just been on, and all of a sudden, like, you get home and people are curious about it for a little bit, but then it just like dies. And then it becomes like, oh yeah, you did that. That's cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people it's difficult. It sucks because, again, like, you do just have like such a life-changing experience, and nobody really understands like what you've just done.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I had a pretty good transition. And even after the PCT, I don't know. I think going back to like the confidence in life that it gives, that those trails gave me, like, I was like, no, I can just, I don't know. It made me very hopeful for life. It did. And I think that's what I took away when I coming back into just normal life. It was nice, like, having that kind of like self-confidence built, because I was like, okay, like, I'll just go jump back into life and we'll see where it goes. Like, again, learning about faith, learning about how, things just happen for you on trail. Like, I don't know, it just gives you a much more positive outlook on life, like the self-confidence it gives you. I don't know. I came back into normal life just excited about whatever opportunities awaited. and knowing that, again, whatever opportunities were on the horizon, like I could face them and make the most of them. So
Let's say there's someone out there who is thinking about doing either trail. What would be your advice to them now that you've done 2 of them?
I mean, just very simply, like, do it.
Do
Like,
it.
go for it. Do it. You don't have to know literally anything about. I mean, you hear that a lot from people just in all kinds of different fields. Like, you don't have to know anything before you get started.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know from, like, through hiking, it's true. I mean, I knew I needed a backpack. I knew like the basic things I needed, but I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was getting myself into. But I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And so, I mean, you do your research beforehand but the trail teaches you really everything you need to know.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like getting started. And I mean, if you mess up and you make mistakes, like, oh well. Like if you get the wrong gear, oh well. Just when you get to the next town, get something different. I mean, you can always learn as you go. But it's kind of like what Michael Scott said. Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like if you don't put one foot out there to begin with, like you're never gonna know. You're just never gonna know what it could have been. So just take the first step. Get some gear. Take the first step. Do it. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of this podcast, I talk about meaning a lot. And I've always said that meaning is found in the actions you take, not in the thoughts you think.
It's true.
Because so many people in their head are like, oh, I could do that. That'd be so great.
Yeah.
Or if I did it this way, it'd be awesome. But they're not moving their feet or doing anything.
Yeah.
And I like that. Yeah, Michael Scott, the philosopher himself. What a great quote.
He's so genius and didn't even know it.
Oh, well. I think he thought he was genius.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad you said about actions because I think, what was I going to say about that? Kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, but we'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it. Yeah, and like you've talked about the experiences were meaningful, and I've been thinking about like what makes a meaningful experience. And I think it comes down to this idea of intentional purpose and shared relationship with others. And that's what creates a meaningful experience.
Yeah.
And that can even be when you're by yourself, like I'm sharing this with nature, sharing this with God, whatever it is. I think that with society today, we lack either one or the other.
Right.
Either I don't have an intentional purpose I'm working towards or doing, or I don't have anything else to attach it to make it meaningful.
Right.
Are there like one or two, you've already mentioned some stories, but are there one or two stories from the PCT that you feel like these were meaningful because I shared them with other people?
There were a lot from the PCT. I mean, like the AT, I have so many stories from the AT, just so many great memories from that. But the PCT was so different because, I did a different direction. So I went southbound on the PCT and I went northbound on the AT. And a southbound experience on any trail is actually more secluded in some ways because not many people do it for whatever reason. They just don't. But I actually met up with a group. I formed a tramily really early on, and we hiked for like 1,600 miles together.
Wow.
On the PCT. Yeah. And so I didn't have that experience in the AT. And so we all just became just so close by the end of our like time together. And like I think about going through the Sierra Nevada, which is like one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And I can remember the group of people I was with, and like was just so thankful for all those people because we just had like a blast together. Like we would get like we're hiking through the most beautiful country I've ever seen. We're getting to town. We're getting these like giant Airbnbs for like 11 of us. And like we're playing games, we're watching movies. I mean, it was really like the Brady Bunch. Like we all really felt like family. Like we all just became so close and just became so comfortable with one another, and it was just like one of like the funnest moments I think of like my life, just because we just had so much fun no matter where we were. And we all just grew just like to really love each other and to love like our friendships with each other. And I'll never forget, like, we were in Mammoth Lakes, California, and we watched Elemental and Encanto together. And it was just like the most beautiful thing. I'd never seen Encanto. Elemental had just come out, and I'd never seen Encanto. And we're all just like sitting there, just like crying together, and we would make meals together. Like we would, and not anything crazy. We just go get like frozen pizzas or something, and but we just had like so much fun, just hiking that trail together. It was, yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah.
That was a good time. It was, I mean, it's always hard, but I don't know. I had made such good friends. And there is also something about the camaraderie of like such a wild shared experience like that you just don't walk away from it without meaning. You don't walk away from that with meaningless friendships. You walk away with like very strong ties to those people. And we were all from different countries. Like one of my buddies was from Israel. There was a girl from Germany, a guy from Australia, 2 guys from France. So, and we may never see each other again, and that is the one great thing about the 21st century is like social media, and like you're always able to keep up with people and see what they're doing. So, and like it's funny because like we all know that if we find ourselves in the same neck of the woods again, like we're definitely going to get together. Like it would be like no time had passed. So, yeah, it was a very, very meaningful experience, and not because it was just, I mean, yeah, it is crazy, like the experience we had, but it was just always like the little moments. And like even just camp, like getting to camp at night was always so much fun because we could all like swap stories. Like me and this one girl, her name was Sophie. We had a competition to see who could see the most bears. And so nobody hikes together during the day. Sometimes you do, but most of the time you just don't because people hike at different paces, and you're like, okay, well, there's a campsite in however many miles. We'll just all meet there. And so it was always fun to like get to camp and be like, hey, Sophie, I saw another bear today. I think I'm in the lead now. We ended up tying, which was annoying. And then it was just also fun because me and my other buddy, Jai, he was from Australia. And I mean, Australians. They're like some of just they love a good joke. They love a good prank. They love a good just like go at people. And so I loved like spending the day thinking like, what can I say to Jai? What can I get him with tonight? I don't know, just something. So, and then getting to camp and just, being like, pulling a prank on him or just telling him a stupid joke or whatever. So it just was like the little things that made it just, so much fun.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds like the PCT, there was more day-to-day to look forward to than maybe the AT. As far as relational.
Well, in a way, yes. In a way, no. Just because I think, again, like, had I had a similar experience in the AT as far as just, like, staying with the same group of people for so long, that probably would have been the same. The AT was just different for me because the AT is is a trail you can kind of take your time on more because you don't have as much of a crazy weather window at the very end of the trail that you're trying to like shoot for. Because if you go northbound on the PCT, like you're trying to get to Washington before really the middle of September, which is a haul. That's a haul.
Yeah.
And so kind of everybody's like on the kind of the same pace of just like, okay, we all kind of have this like nervousness to like get to certain places in a certain amount of time. Whereas the AT is not like that at all. Like there's no weather window. Like people start, as early as February and they'll be done as late as October.
Wow.
So there's no rush. Like if you started in February, you could easily do 10 miles a day and be done by October and have just like enjoyed it, not worried about it. I mean, but you do have people also that are like that really want to challenge themselves and try to do it as fast as possible, and then you have people who are in between. So I think that's what was hard for me is like trying to find people who kind of fit the pace I wanted to go, and then trying to like and then I had to get off for a buddy's wedding. My buddy Tyler got married like August, like the middle of me hiking the AT, and I had to get off for like a week. So the whole time leading up to August, I'm like freaking out because I'm just like, I've got to like get there because there is a bit of a weather window in Maine, because October 15th is when they technically close the end of the trail. Because it ends in like a beautiful part of the state, but it's a state park, but they are really about the preservation of the mountain and of the park. And so once it hits a certain date, they're like, no more. So I was kind of rushing, like, oh God, like I've got this wedding in August. Like I started in April. Like I need to make miles. I don't have as much time to just kill and chill and all the things. But so that's why I kept finding myself in and out of different groups on the AT. But I had I made great friends with so many different people and just had such great conversation with so many different people. I particularly enjoyed this one dude I hiked with. His name was Fancy Pants. And he was just such a good dude. We hiked together for probably 2.5, 3 weeks. And we are extremely different people. Like, extremely different people. I grew up southern Appalachia. He grew up in the middle of San Francisco. Like, we have very different thought processes, very different raisings, very different everything. But we had great conversation about life and even about faith. Like, I don't think he would consider himself really like a Christian, but he was raised in an Anglican church, and it was fun having conversations with him because he was like, man, like, this like takes me back to like when I was a kid. Like, this like reminds me of all the good things about church. And I was like, yeah, it's not all that bad. There are some crappy parts about it, I will admit, but it's not always that bad. But he was so much fun to talk to because he just was a very like inquisitive person too. That's one thing I appreciated about him was just his curiosity about the differences in our lives and why I thought the way I thought. And I always appreciated conversations with him. I loved catching up with that group that I met on top of the mountain way back in Tennessee. So I kind of blew them out of the water. They were very relaxed hikers. Didn't really like. They did a lot of hitchhiking around trails, and they didn't hike the whole thing, which is fine. Like, hike your own hike, as we say.
Oh.
But I actually caught back up with them in Vermont. So that's like the next time I saw them. And it was just, I finished with some of those people. But I loved the time that I spent with them. Like, they were so much fun. And me and my buddy Dietz, like, Dietz was funny because, Dietz is short for details because he always knew exactly how many miles you had left for the day. He knew exactly what the elevation was. He knew his best quality was that he always knew where to go eat when we were in town.
Nice.
So we get to town and he'd be like, listen, there's this restaurant that we have to go to. Like, everybody, like, I've read all the comments. I've read all the Yelp reviews. Like, that's where we have to go. And he never missed. He was always 100% correct that was where we needed to go. So he was just, I loved, like, and sometimes too, like, he and I would just splurge. Like, he got to the point where he called it bougie blazing, because he was like, listen, I've made enough money in my life. Like, I'm not worried about it. And then I thought, you know what? I haven't made that much money in my life, but when am I ever going to do this again? Heck yeah, give me the steak. Like, heck yeah, give me the... So he was a lot of fun to hike with, because we would, and like anytime that we were in town and just didn't want to leave, we'd be like, dude, do you want to just get a hotel room? And he'd be like, yeah, for sure.
Well, next question is, what would you today tell Ralston 5 years ago? Piece of advice, quote, word of encouragement. What would you say?
Oh man, I really like this question. I would tell me 5 years ago to not worry so much about what you're gonna do right now. Like, I think when I graduated college, like, I was just so like hell bent on like finding a career path for myself and like doing what I thought was right because of what people told me I should do. Like, you know, that's, you hear from your parents and you hear from people you trust in your life that, you know, you should go to school, you should get a job, you should, and that's not a bad thing, but it's just more challenging than just, and like I want to live like a fulfilling, meaningful, good life.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily, I just didn't know what that looked like for me at the time. And I thought I did. I thought that, like, okay, well, this is what everybody's telling me to do, so that's what I should do.
Yeah.
But the one thing I didn't realize at the time was, I was like, I'm 22 at that time. Like, I don't know anything about anything, which in a way is kind of nerve-wracking, but also in a way is kind of freeing. Like,
How so?
because nobody expects you to. Like, you're just a kid who is fresh out of college, and really, like, the world's your oyster. Like, you don't have to, you really have so much freedom to kind of find your way as a 22-year-old. Now, granted, like, I was single at the time and was not in a serious relationship. And so I wasn't about to have like crazy responsibilities that I needed to like make sure. But I think that was what was great about at the time that I was, and I wish I'd taken more advantage of that then. I'm just like, I'm a 22-year-old that has I'm responsible for no one but myself. Like, I really have an opportunity to, like, if I want to go try something, like, because I thought college was my time to like really try and learn. But once I graduated, like, I needed to get more serious about my life.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's the case. Like, I don't think that, you know, I think had I just been a little bit more gracious with myself and a little bit more just relaxed with myself, like, I wouldn't have been so anxious about finding what was right for me. I could have taken a little bit more time to just be like, you know what? I'm a 22-year-old. I don't have to know anything about anything. Like, I can just learn. I can humble myself a little bit and learn and continue to learn from other people and try new things. And I mean, what I'm doing right now, as far as like my job, which I love my job right now.
Yeah. What are you doing right now?
I'm a cable guy.
Okay. Larry the cable guy?
Basically, yeah.
That's awesome.
Actually, not really that kind of cabling, but we do like low voltage cabling. My company does. So it's just very like hands-on. It's not at all what I thought I'd be doing in my life, but here we are. But I love it. Like, I love what I do. And it's just funny that like I kind of just fell into it a little bit. But yeah, I just wish that, like, if I could go back and tell myself anything, I would just tell myself, like, don't stress too much about it. Like, you can always, you have the time now to to keep learning. Like you don't have to find your career right now. Like you can try, you still can try things. You still can learn new skills. Like you're not having to like pigeonhole yourself into one career right now.
Yeah.
And I would have told him like, if you really want to do the trail now, like go ahead and do it. Like don't get so stuck into one thought process. Like again, you've got all kinds of time and all kinds of like, yeah, just chill and learn and do, and don't be so like anxious about where you're going to end up.
Yeah, I like that. Live in the present. Don't worry about the getting there.
Yeah.
Just be in today.
Yeah.
I like that. I'll knock that over. My last question is more around the future. Are you going to do any more trails or any more big trips? There's a little side eye there.
Yeah. So for those of you who are watching, my girlfriend is with me today. And so this is just a funny question. I mean, there's always like an adventure on the horizon, I think, for me. I think there's always something that like I have in mind. But I think I am in more of a place where like I am ready to settle down a little bit and just, because again, I really like my job and I really see a lot of like future there as far as what I can do with it. And I don't know, I really like where I'm at right now. And then I've also got Anna Kate, which is great.
She is the next adventure.
I feel like I've told her that before. I feel like I've said something cheesy like that before to her.
Probably.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm excited about kind of this stage of life of like, you know, I really like what I do. I really like who I'm with, and that's great. Like, I'm cool with that. But I do still have like this, or I would love to be like a triple crown through hiker, back to that idea from earlier. Which luckily I've knocked out 2, so I just have one more.
Yeah.
But I would love to do the Continental Divide at some point. But
yeah, not that you guys are married yet, but if you were to get married and have kids, I found first 6 months of the newborn's life, you're good to be absent. You're good. Just go ahead and do it then. She won't need you at all.
Okay.
This is very facetious.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, wow, that's really good advice. Cool.
From a dad of 2.
Right, yeah.
That is not, don't do that.
Yeah, no.
You would come home to a broken home.
I was about to, that was what I was going to say. Like, if I want to stay married, that would probably be like not what I should do.
Just live for today, man.
Yeah, you're right. No, one of the things I have thought about though is like, I actually have met several like families on the trail. And if not just families, just like maybe like a mom and a son or a dad and a daughter or whatever. I've met several people who have done that. And so like I have thought, you know, one day if I do have a kid and they do grow up and they're like, Dad, like I'd love to do a trail. Like, me too, son, or me too, daughter. Like, let's do it. So that one's kind of in my back pocket for.
Yeah, back pocket. Worst case, you'll just coerce them into it. You had this idea last week, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta put it in their head without them realizing it. Manipulation, I think, is what that's also called.
Tomato. But yeah, last question. Best quote or piece of advice or something someone has said from 2024.
Best quote or piece of advice from 2024. Man. I think, you know, Anna Kate and I have been reading this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Good book.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I just finished it the other day. It's really good. But, and there's a lot of quotes from it, and I'm not good at remembering quotes, but just like the idea, like advice of just slowing your life down and decluttering both material parts of your life and also just the things that you do, and just being more present with, again, the people in your life and with God, and not tacking on so many responsibilities, not tacking on so many obligations. And you don't have to, when people call for volunteers, you don't have to be a volunteer. When people call for whatever, like, you don't have to be the end all be all for everything. Like, but, and really taking time to intentionally slow down your life, and then intentionally put things in your life that you want to make sure you can give your attention to, and you can give your like energy to. Is kind of the thing I got from that book, and that's something that I really liked. And again, I think that's what the trail has taught me too. But I think, again, like just that reaffirmation of that idea, reading that book was what I was like, man, like this is, I feel this, like I've thought this before, and this is just putting better words to it. Like it was just a very good book.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts?
Happy trails, everybody.
Happy trails.
Go on a hike, go get outside, get you some vitamin D. If nothing else, just a little serotonin for a couple hours, or even a few minutes.
Was that your old girlfriend?
Serotonin? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she taught me that.
I had to end on a dad joke.
I
had to do it.
Yeah. You definitely are a dad of two.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. This was a good conversation.
Man, I'm glad you asked. This was great. I always love talking trails. So
yeah,
thanks.
cool. We'll see you guys next time.